This segment of the Chopin podcast is brought to you by the Chopin Foundation of the United States, presenters of the National Chopin Competition in Miami, Florida, January 2025.
One of the ironies of classical music performance is that most of the great composers whose music we play from past centuries were also great improvisers. And yet it is rare to find a classical pianist today with even basic fluency in improvisation, even among the world's best concert pianists. It's a matter of training. We classical pianists are taught first and foremost to memorize and recite other people's music, and our musicianship grows around that. Most of us don't compose and can't improvise. While improvisation was alive and well among classical composers like Chopin and Liszt in the 19th century, the torch was passed to jazz musicians in the 20th. And a jazz pianist's training puts much more emphasis on developing the ear and building a vocabulary of musical turns of phrases that can be played in any key. But the times, they are a-changin', and there's a growing movement of musicians dedicated to resurrecting the lost art of historical improvisation and making it current again in the classical world. At the forefront of this vanguard is Noam Sivan, a virtuoso pianist and composer who has made his name improvising in musical languages from Bach to Debussy and beyond. Noam Sivan has taught classes on improvisation at top conservatories like Juilliard and the Curtis Institute, and is now professor of improvisation at the State University of Music and the Performing Arts in Stuttgart. I was lucky enough to catch up with Noam recently on a video call, where I posed a challenge to him. I'd name a piece by Chopin, and he'd have to play the first few bars of the piece just as Chopin wrote it, but then turn the music in a new direction and make up the rest of the piece on the spot. For the sake of time, Noam only improvised one or two new passages on top of the original phrase, although he's more than capable of spinning these off into fully developed musical narratives. But the rule was he couldn't just take the music in any random direction. He had to maintain the spirit of Chopin's original score, starting with the same characters, but facing a new plot twist. Think of it as a kind of improvised fan fiction on some of Chopin's most popular pieces. Besides the opening bars written by Chopin, all of the music you're about to hear is a fully improvised first take. No redos, no practicing, just 100% spur of the moment, impromptu performance.
Shall we start with the Raindrop Prelude?
Sure.
Now maybe we'll move to a Nocturne. How about the C minor Nocturne, Opus 48, number 1?
Okay.
I love it. I love that a lot. Okay, how about a ballade? Third ballade. Okay, how about a scherzo? Second scherzo?
Scherzo. Okay.
Okay, then. That's write that one down. I wanna play that one. Uh actually that reminds me. Do you ever have an improvisation that ends up being recorded and you're like, you know what? I really liked, but I just like even more than other things. Do you ever think, wow, okay, that was really, really good? I don't know. Or do you ever judge your own improvisations or
Yeah, but I like to think of them as something that is done today and tomorrow it could be different.
yeah.
I want to preserve that creative freedom. And when I do sit down to write something on paper, I do take my time. So in my written compositions, I look back and make some changes. So it's better not to feel attached. Imagine if Chopin felt so attached to this one particular piece that he couldn't continue composing. So you need, in a way, to sort of release something in order to allow yourself to keep moving.
I mean, there's a lot of life lessons in there too. I mean, we shouldn't dwell too much and cling too much on the experiences of our past that, good or bad, we might get hung up on and prevent us from continuing to develop and, and progress as human beings. So, but anyway, maybe something a little in a different mood. How about the A minor waltz, the Opus 34 number 2? Beautiful. I don't know if you had a couple more Berceuse, maybe another variation on that theme, just to end things.
Maybe I'll do it in a different key
Sure.
to give myself more freedom.
Sure. I do have a conservative 20th century piano teacher in my head right now who's deterring me from trying to improvise, or at least deterring me from bringing it into a competition and maybe changing some things in a sacred piece of music. Because what do they always say? Well, if I say to them, hey, Beethoven did it, Chopin did it, they say, honey, you're not Beethoven, you're not Chopin. And so I don't know if you've encountered that kind of mentality, but I've found it pretty prevalent. This idea that no, we're not worthy. We're not them. We're not the geniuses. The best we can do is be servants who try to reproduce these scores at the piano. Is this a mentality that you're familiar with?
I hear it all the time. The idea that there are these great composers and all we can do is just read what they wrote and make music out of it. Now, obviously, this music survived the test of time. It is beautiful music, and it's very much worthy playing it. It's enjoyable. It's fulfilling. No question about it. But I do feel that doing only that is limiting to our musical development and limiting to our musical culture, because then we are not allowing the language to remain alive in the fullest sense. Again, with the language analogy, if you just take finished works from the past and you just recite them, but you're not creating new novels, romans, or speeches, you're not speaking the language. It's like Latin. Then you learn, okay, they spoke it some time ago, and that's it. And classical music is much more than that. So improvising, if it's, let's say, yes, it's not going to immediately sound at the level of Bach or Beethoven, obviously, and that does take years of study, but the great composers, they did learn. You know how they learned. You know what was the process by which they learned, and they were really this approach of geniuses and great composers is not helping us. We have to think about it as a process. How do you learn harmony? How do you learn melody? How do you learn composition? How do you learn to create music? There are ways to learn it. And I do believe that with more and more people doing it, then we will have more improvisations and more high quality improvisations. So yes, the people who are skeptical at first will say, well, yes, it's not yet at the level of what I know, but after a few years, it will get better and it will get to the level. And if you focus on the creative process and what can come out of it, and you see the value in it, then you allow it to flourish without cutting it before it gets started. And then our music culture will be so much richer.